My future mother-in-law threw my dead grandmother's cake recipe in the trash at my own engagement party and told guests I was embarrassing myself. So I threw her entire family's dirty secrets on the table at our rehearsal dinner. You know that moment when someone hands you their phone to look at a photo and a notification slides down from the top of the screen? That millisecond when you see something you absolutely weren't supposed to see? The notification read, "Madison, don't let her see this," with a preview that said, "Is she still coming to Easter? Can't we just—" My hands went numb. The phone belonged to my fiancé's sister Charlotte, who was showing me bridesmaid dress options for our wedding. She snatched it back so fast she nearly dropped it, her face going white, then red, then white again. "Madison, that's not, it's just, we were joking," but I'd already seen enough. The damage was done. And honestly, that notification was the kindest thing that family ever did for me, because it finally opened my eyes to what I'd been too desperate to see for 2 solid years. This is the story of how I went from being the family punching bag to the woman who burned their whole charade to the ground. And I'm not even sorry, let me back up. My name is Madison Claire Foster, I'm 28, and I'm a pediatric nurse in Denver, Colorado. I work long shifts, I'm good at my job, and I actually love what I do. I grew up middle class in Ohio. My dad's a high school teacher, my mom's a librarian. Normal people. Kind people. The type who taught me that family dinners matter and you always bring a hostess gift. I met Ryan Westfield at a hospital charity gala 2.5 years ago. He was a pharmaceutical sales rep, charming in that smooth, practiced way that should have been my first red flag. But he was handsome, dark hair, bright smile, the kind of confidence that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. We dated for 8 months before he proposed. Maybe that should have been red flag number 2, the speed of it all. But I was 26. Most of my friends were getting married, and Ryan felt like stability, like proof that I was doing life right. The problem started about 3 months into dating when he took me home to meet his family. The Westfields lived in Cherry Hills Village, one of those Denver suburbs where the houses have names instead of numbers, and the driveways could fit 6 cars. Ryan's father, Gregory, was a real estate developer. His mother, Patricia, never Trish, never Patty, always Patricia, was a former pageant queen turned philanthropist, which apparently meant organizing charity galas and judging everyone who didn't summer in Aspen. They had 3 kids, Ryan, 31, Charlotte, 29, and Blake, 26. That first dinner, I wore a navy dress from Target that I thought looked nice. I brought a bouquet of flowers and a bottle of wine. Patricia opened the door, took one look at me, and her smile tightened like a rubber band about to snap. "Oh," she said, "how sweet." She took the flowers like they might be contagious and handed them to their housekeeper. Yes, they had a housekeeper, without even looking at the woman. The wine got a similar reception. "We only drink French vintages, dear, but that's very thoughtful." The whole evening was like that. Little cuts. Tiny corrections. I complimented the house and Patricia said, "Yes, well, Gregory has always had impeccable taste." I mentioned I was a nurse and she said, "Oh, how noble." Ryan's last girlfriend was finishing her law degree at Stanford. Charlotte spent the entire dinner on her phone. Blake kept asking Ryan about his options and whether he was still considering that position in Boston. Gregory barely acknowledged I existed. And Ryan? Ryan just laughed everything off. "Mom's just particular," he'd say later in the car. "She'll warm up to you." Spoiler, she did not warm up. But I was already in love, or what I thought was love. And I genuinely believed that if I just tried hard enough, proved myself enough, they'd eventually accept me. God, I was so stupid. Over the next 1.5 years, I bent myself into shapes I didn't even recognize. Every family dinner, every holiday, every casual gathering became an audition I was always failing. I brought homemade desserts. Patricia served store-bought and mentioned how quaint homemade was. I dressed up. Charlotte said I looked like I was trying too hard. I dressed down. Patricia asked if I'd come straight from work, in a tone that made it clear that wasn't a compliment. Ryan proposed on my birthday, which should have been romantic. We were at his parents' house for what I thought was just a birthday dinner. He got down on one knee in front of his whole family, and I said yes because of course I said yes. But even that moment was tainted. As soon as the ring was on my finger, Patricia swooped in and said, "Oh, Ryan, you chose so well. It's very sensible." The ring was beautiful. A simple solitaire, nothing flashy, But the way she said sensible made it sound like an insult. Like Ryan had purchased a used Honda when he could have had a Porsche. Charlotte immediately grabbed my hand to inspect it, and I heard her whisper to Blake, "It's smaller than I expected." Blake snorted. Ryan either didn't hear or pretended not to. Wedding planning became a nightmare. Patricia took over immediately, steamrolling every decision. She hated my dress choice, too simple, vetoed my venue, too country, and actually told the caterer I selected that they weren't up to Westfield standards and hired someone else without telling me. When I protested to Ryan, he said, "Mom's helping. She's good at this stuff. Just let her handle it." "But it's our wedding," I said. "It's just a party, Maddie. Don't make it a big deal." Every time I pushed back, I was being difficult. Every time I expressed hurt, I was too sensitive. Every time I tried to set a boundary, Ryan accused me of hating his family. So I stopped pushing back. I smiled. I nodded. I swallowed every insult and told myself it would get better after the wedding. The truly bizarre incident started about 6 months before the wedding. Patricia began calling me at random times, always when she knew I was working, to ask my opinion on wedding details, then completely ignoring whatever I said. It was like a power play, forcing me to be available to her. She'd text me photos of bridesmaid dresses I'd already said I hated and act shocked when I reminded her of my preferences. "Oh, did you say that? I must have forgotten." Charlotte accidentally posted on social media about wedding details before I'd told my own family, ruining multiple surprises. Blake started making jokes at dinners about Ryan's old flames and how accomplished they were. One time, he pulled up an ex-girlfriend's Instagram at the dinner table and showed everyone photos of her law school graduation while I sat right there. Ryan laughed it off. The final straw before the group chat incident happened at my engagement party, the one Patricia insisted on throwing. I'd spent weeks perfecting a recipe for a 3-layer lemon cake with raspberry filling. Baking isn't just a hobby for me, it's how I show love. My grandma taught me, and every recipe I make carries her memory. I brought the cake to the party, and Patricia's face when she saw it was pure disdain. "You made this yourself?" she asked, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "Yes," I said, proud. "It's my grandma's recipe." She lifted the cake plate, walked directly to the kitchen, and I watched through the doorway as she scraped the entire cake into the trash. Then she brought out a store-bought cake from some expensive Denver bakery. When I confronted her, tears burning in my eyes, she said, "Oh, honey, I couldn't let you embarrass yourself. These people have standards." Ryan told me I was overreacting. That night, I cried myself to sleep while Ryan snored beside me, oblivious. Which brings me back to the notification, the group chat. After Charlotte snatched her phone back, I went home early, claiming a headache. Ryan stayed at his parents' house to watch the game with Blake. I sat in our apartment, Ryan's apartment, technically, another thing that made me feel small, and I couldn't stop thinking about that notification. Madison, don't let her see this. A group chat, about me, that I wasn't supposed to see. I felt sick. Around midnight, Ryan came home, stumbling and laughing, clearly drunk. He kissed my forehead and collapsed into bed. I couldn't sleep. At 2 a.m, I did something I'd never done before. I took Ryan's phone from the nightstand. His passcode was his birthday. I'd known it for years because he'd never bothered to hide it from me. He had nothing to hide, right? I opened his messages, and there it was. Madison, don't let her see this. The chat members. Ryan, Patricia, Gregory, Charlotte, Blake. His entire immediate family in a group chat. About me. My hands shook as I scrolled up. Months of messages. Maybe years. Patricia. Is she still coming to Easter? Can't we just have one family holiday without walking on eggshells? Charlotte. She wore that dress again. Doesn't she own anything that fits properly? Blake. Ryan, when are you going to stop slumming it and find someone from our actual circle? Gregory. The girl's fine. She's temporary. Let the boy have his fun. But the worst ones, the absolute worst, were from Ryan. Ryan. Guys, relax. I know she's not exactly what we pictured, but she's sweet. She'll make a good wife. Charlotte. Good wife? You mean good housekeeper? Ryan. LOL, basically, but seriously, she worships me. It's kind of nice having someone who tries this hard. Patricia. Just promise me you'll upgrade eventually. I can't introduce her to the country club women without cringing. Ryan. Mom, I'm not upgrading. I'm marrying her. She's easy, low maintenance. After Stephanie, that's refreshing. Stephanie, the Stanford law student, the one they still brought up constantly. Blake. Low maintenance is code for low expectations, bro. Ryan. Exactly. I read that word over and over. Exactly. He wasn't defending me. He was agreeing with them. I scrolled further, found messages from the week of the cake incident. Patricia. I threw out that horrific cake she made. You're welcome. Ryan. Good call. That thing looked like a Pinterest fail. Charlotte. I'm dying. They'd all laughed. Together. At me. There were messages about my clothes, my hair, my job, my family, my car. They called me Ryan's project. They had a running joke about how long I'd last. Charlotte had literally created a poll. Over under, Madison makes it to the altar? Most of them had voted under. I sat there on my bathroom floor, phone in my shaking hands, and something inside me just broke. Not broke like shattered. Broke like a lock snapping open. I wasn't sad anymore. I was clear. Crystal clear. These people didn't deserve my tears. They deserved something much, much better. I didn't confront Ryan that morning. I went to work like normal, smiled through my shift, took care of my tiny patients. But inside, I was calculating. See, here's the thing about being constantly underestimated. People get sloppy around you. They say things. They leave things unlocked. They forget you're capable of anything beyond nodding and smiling. The Westfields had no idea who they were dealing with. I'd spent 2 years learning everything about this family. Their secrets, their pressure points, their carefully maintained image. And I'd spent 2 years being the only one who actually paid attention. I knew that Gregory's real estate empire was built on some very creative accounting that probably wouldn't hold up to scrutiny. I knew because Ryan had gotten drunk one night and complained about his dad's sketchy tax guy. I knew that Charlotte's engagement to her fiancé, Marcus, who came from old Denver money, was hanging by a thread because Charlotte had been having an affair with her personal trainer. I knew because I'd seen the text messages she'd carelessly left open when I'd borrowed her phone once. I knew that Blake's consultant job was actually just him living off a trust fund while day trading badly. I knew because he'd drunkenly shown me his portfolio once, thinking I was too dumb to understand it was a disaster. I knew that Patricia's charity work was mostly embezzlement from the foundation she ran. Small amounts, careful, but consistent. I knew because I'd volunteered to help with the foundation's annual gala and noticed that the budget spreadsheets didn't quite add up. And I knew that Ryan, my beloved fiancé, had a cocaine problem he was hiding from everyone except his dealer. I knew because I'd found the Venmo transactions on a shared iPad. Lots of payments to someone named DJ Travis with emojis that definitely weren't for music. Separately, these secrets were just family drama. Together, they were nuclear. I took a week to grieve the relationship I'd thought I had. I cried in my car. I called my mom and told her everything. She wanted me to come home immediately, but I said no. I had something to finish first. Then I got to work. The wedding was 3 months away. 3 months to orchestrate the most satisfying dismantling of my life. First, I played the perfect fiancé. Even more perfect than before. I stopped pushing back on wedding decisions. I agreed with everything Patricia suggested. I complimented Charlotte's taste. I laughed at Blake's jokes. Ryan noticed the change and actually told his mother I was finally coming around. Good. Meanwhile, I quietly started documenting everything. I made copies of Gregory's financial documents that Ryan had stored on our shared laptop. Just in case Ryan ever needed them, he'd said. I photographed every questionable transaction, every shell company, every consulting fee that didn't have a matching consultant. I screenshotted Charlotte's affair text when she left her phone unattended at a family brunch. She was always so careless, so confident I was too beneath her to bother looking. I recorded a conversation with Blake about his investments where he admitted he'd been lying to his parents about his job for 2 years. I volunteered to help more with Patricia's foundation, and when she left me alone in her home office to answer a call, I spent 15 minutes photographing her financial records. The skimming was elegant, I had to admit. 100 here, 200 there, but over 5 years, it added up to nearly $200,000. And Ryan, sweet, clueless Ryan. One night, while he was passed out drunk, I went through his phone again. I found his dealer's contact info. I found the Venmo history. I found texts with his college buddy where he explicitly talked about buying cocaine. I backed everything up to a cloud drive Ryan didn't know existed. The entire time, I smiled. I went to dress fittings. I tasted cakes. I addressed invitations. I played the role they'd written for me, the sweet, simple girl who didn't know any better. My breaking point for action came at the final wedding venue walkthrough. Patricia, Charlotte, and I were meeting with the coordinator. I'd suggested having my younger cousin sing during the ceremony. She had a beautiful voice, and it would mean so much to my family. Patricia literally laughed in my face. Absolutely not. We've hired a professional opera singer. We can't have your little cousin screeching during such an important moment. Charlotte smirked. No offense, Maddie, but this is a Westfield wedding. We have standards. The coordinator looked uncomfortable. I looked down at my hands, and I made my decision. I wasn't going through with this wedding, but I also wasn't just walking away quietly. The rehearsal dinner was on a Friday night, 2 days before the Saturday wedding. The Westfields had rented out a private room at the most exclusive restaurant in Denver. 75 guests. Ryan's family, extended family, their important friends, my family, my parents, my brother, a handful of relatives, looked wildly out of place among the designer dresses and expensive watches. I wore a simple white dress. Appropriate. Forgettable. Elle had spent the previous week making final preparations. I'd contacted a lawyer and shown them everything I'd gathered. They'd confirmed what I suspected. Gregory's tax issues were potentially criminal. Patricia's embezzlement definitely was. The lawyer also helped me understand that I had no legal obligation to stay silent about crimes I'd discovered. I'd anonymously tipped off the IRS about Gregory's businesses. I'd sent Charlotte's affair screenshots to Marcus's mother, a notoriously protective woman who controlled Marcus's trust fund. I'd sent Blake's mother proof that her son had been lying about his employment for 2 years, but I was saving the best for last. The rehearsal dinner started typically. Patricia gave a speech about welcoming me into the family that was so condescending I saw my own mother's jaw tighten. Gregory made jokes about Ryan, finally settling down. Charlotte posted Instagram stories with captions like, "My brother's last night of freedom. We ate the first course. Drank champagne." Everyone was relaxed. Then, during the salad course, I stood up. Ryan looked at me, confused. This wasn't part of the plan. "I'd like to say a few words," I said quietly. Patricia's smile was tight. "Madison, dear, we usually save toasts for after. This won't take long." The room quieted. 75 pairs of eyes turned to me. My heart was hammering, but my voice stayed steady. "I want to start by thanking the Westfield family for the past 2 years," I said. "You've taught me so much about family dynamics, about expectations, and about knowing your worth." Polite murmurs. Ryan smiled, thinking this was a normal sappy toast. "I also want to thank Ryan," I continued, looking directly at my fiancé, "for showing me exactly who he is, and who he isn't." His smile faltered. "See, I discovered something recently. A group chat, actually, called Madison, Don't Let Her See This." The room went dead silent. Charlotte's face drained of color. Patricia's fork stopped halfway to her mouth. In this chat, Ryan's entire family discussed me, my clothes, my job, my family, my worth. They made bets about whether I'd make it to the wedding. They called me a project. Temporary. Easy. My voice didn't shake. Not once. Ryan agreed with them. He called me low maintenance because I have low expectations. He laughed when his mother threw my grandmother's cake in the trash. He said I worship him and that it's kind of nice having someone who tries so hard. Ryan stood up. "Maddie, this isn't... We can talk about this." "Sit down," I said calmly. He sat. I'm not here to embarrass anyone, I continued. Well, actually, that's exactly why I'm here. Because you spent 2 years embarrassing me. And I spent 2 years taking it because I thought that's what love was. Sacrifice, patience, proving yourself. I looked around the room at the Westfield family friends, the extended relatives, all watching with wide eyes. But here's what I learned. Love doesn't require you to shrink. It doesn't mock you behind your back. And it definitely doesn't create group chats to ridicule you. Patricia finally found her voice. This is hardly the time or place. Oh, Patricia, this is exactly the time and place, I said. Because all these people are here to celebrate our families joining. They should know what kind of family they're celebrating. I pulled out my phone. Gregory, should we talk about your creative accounting, the shell companies, the tax fraud that the IRS is probably very interested in by now? Gregory's face went purple. Charlotte, should we discuss your affair with Jake the trainer? Does Marcus know? Oh, wait, his mother knows now. She got the screenshots yesterday. Charlotte made a choking sound. Blake, still pretending you have a job? How's the trust fund holding up? Blake looked like he might throw up. And Patricia, sweet Patricia. The foundation embezzlement is a nice touch. Nearly $200,000 over 5 years. The board's getting an anonymous tip on Monday. Patricia actually gasped. But Ryan, I said, turning back to him. You're my favorite. Should we tell everyone about DJ Travis? About the cocaine? About the fact that you're one bad decision away from throwing away your pharmaceutical career? The room erupted. People were standing, talking, some heading for the exits. Gregory was yelling, Patricia was crying. Charlotte was on her phone, frantically texting. Ryan just stared at me like he'd never seen me before. The wedding's off, I said simply. I'm keeping the gifts that have already arrived as compensation for my time. The ring's on the table. I'll be moved out of your apartment by tomorrow. I grabbed my purse. Oh, and one more thing, I said, looking at Patricia. That cake you threw away? My grandmother died making sure I knew that recipe. Every time I bake it, I remember her telling me to never let anyone make me feel small. My voice finally cracked, just a little. I forgot that for a while. But I remember now. I walked out of that restaurant with my head high, my family scrambling to follow me, and the sound of chaos erupting behind me. The next 72 hours were insane. My phone exploded with texts, calls, emails. Most of the wedding guests had witnessed the rehearsal dinner implosion, and word spread fast. Ryan called 47 times. I blocked him after listening to the first voicemail, where he called me a vindictive witch and demanded I fix this. Charlotte showed up at my parents' house, where I'd fled that night, screaming about how I'd ruined her engagement. Marcus had broken up with her immediately. His mother had cut her off from family events. Charlotte's carefully planned society wedding was canceled. I didn't answer the door. Blake sent me a long email calling me every name in the book, then asking if there was any way I could take back what I'd said about him. There wasn't. His parents had cut off his trust fund pending a full audit of where the money had gone. I deleted the email. Patricia tried to play victim, telling anyone who would listen that I'd ambushed them and that everything I'd said was lies. But the IRS doesn't investigate based on lies, and the Foundation Board definitely took the embezzlement evidence seriously. She was quietly asked to resign within a week. Gregory's business fell apart faster than I'd expected. Turns out when you build an empire on fraud, one investigation topples everything. Several partners pulled out. Lawsuits started flying. The last I heard, they were selling the Cherry Hills house. But Ryan was the most persistent. He showed up at the hospital where I worked 3 days after the rehearsal dinner. Security had to escort him out. He sent flowers with notes like, "We can fix this," and "You're throwing away everything." He had his friends reach out to my friends, trying to paint me as unstable, jealous, manipulative. But here's the thing. I had receipts. Literal receipts. Screenshots, documents, recordings. When Ryan's version of events didn't match reality, people started believing me instead. The nursing community in Denver is small, and word got around about what happened. Instead of judgment, I received overwhelming support. Coworkers shared their own stories of toxic families. Patients' parents hugged me. My supervisor took me to coffee and told me she'd once walked away from a similar situation. I wasn't alone. My own family surrounded me with love. My dad, who's normally quiet, told me he'd never been prouder. My mom helped me find a new apartment and spent a week helping me move in. My brother threatened to handle Ryan if he showed up again, which was sweet but unnecessary. The wedding gifts were awkward. Some people requested them back, which I understood and honored. Others told me to keep them as compensation for my trouble. I donated most to a women's shelter. The legal fallout took months. Gregory ended up settling with the IRS for a massive sum and faced probate. His business never recovered. Patricia was charged with embezzlement but took a plea deal that involved repayment and community service. Her reputation in Denver society was destroyed. Charlotte's engagement stayed broken. Last I heard, she'd moved to California to start fresh. Blake got a job, a real one. Apparently having your trust fund cut off is motivating. And Ryan? Ryan lost his pharmaceutical job after his employer found out about the cocaine. He went to rehab, forced by his parents as a condition of them continuing to pay for anything. He's apparently sober now and working for his dad's struggling business. I heard through mutual acquaintances that he tells people I was crazy and that he dodged a bullet. Sure, Ryan, whatever helps you sleep at night. It's been 14 months since the rehearsal dinner. I'm sitting in my little apartment, my own apartment that I pay for with my own money, drinking coffee and writing this all out because a friend suggested it might be therapeutic. She was right. People ask me if I regret it, if I feel guilty, if maybe I went too far. The honest answer? No. I didn't expose anyone's secrets because I'm vindictive. I exposed them because they were crimes and lies that deserved to see daylight. I didn't humiliate the Westfields because I wanted revenge. I humiliated them because they spent 2 years humiliating me, and they needed to understand what that felt like. Was it dramatic? Sure. Was it satisfying? Absolutely. Do I wish things had been different? Every single day. I wish Ryan had been the man I thought he was. I wish his family had been kind. I wish I hadn't wasted 2 years trying to earn love from people who saw me as beneath them. But I don't wish I'd stayed silent. The old Madison, the one who brought flowers and smiled through insults and believed that trying harder would make them accept her, she's gone. The new Madison knows her worth. She sets boundaries. She doesn't apologize for taking up space. I'm dating again, though I'm taking it slow. There's a pediatrician at the hospital who makes me laugh and treats me like I'm fascinating instead of a project. We'll see where it goes. I still bake my grandmother's cake. I make it for coworkers' birthdays and office parties. Every single time, people tell me it's the best cake they've ever had. I always smile and say, thanks, it's a family recipe. Because it is. And my family, my real family, the one that loves me, taught me that recipes aren't just about ingredients. They're about remembering who you are and where you come from. They're about knowing that some things are worth fighting for. I saw Ryan once, about 6 months ago, at a coffee shop near the hospital. He looked tired, older. He saw me too, and for a moment we just stared at each other. Then he looked away. I got my coffee and left. There's nothing left to say to him. Sometimes people ask if I miss him, or if I miss the idea of the wedding, the future I'd planned. I don't. What I miss is the version of myself who believed she needed to be smaller to be loved, who thought that patience meant tolerating cruelty, who measured her worth by whether someone else's family approved of her. I don't miss her because she was never really me. She was just who I thought I needed to be to deserve love. But the truth is, I always deserved it. I deserved it when I walked into that house with grocery store flowers. I deserved it when I baked that cake. I deserved it every single time I smiled through an insult or swallowed my hurt or tried to be good enough. The Westfields didn't fail to see my worth. I failed to see it myself. And when I finally did, when I finally stood up in that restaurant and said, enough, that's when everything changed. Not because I got revenge, though I won't pretend that didn't feel good, but because I chose myself. For the first time in 2 years, I chose myself. So yeah, that's my story. I'm not the villain Ryan's telling everyone I am. I'm not the victim I used to be either. I'm just a woman who learned that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from people who make you feel small, and if you happen to burn a few bridges on your way out, well, some bridges deserve to be burned. The rehearsal dinner was 18 months ago, and I still sleep soundly every single night.